Welcome back to Capitol Hill. I of course am Alan Freedom. Adam Preston is still not here. He is riding on horseback across Russia with no shirt on. This is where I wish I had a show with photos. I would edit in his face uh, on Putin. So with me tonight, of course, is our very own analyst. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here, as always.
As always. Well, a lot going up on the Hill today. As we can start with quite a string of bills easily passing the House and the Senate.
Yes, the congressional Republicans have shown that they're here and they're ready to go. So they've already put 4 bills in the president's desk. You got three more bills passing the president's agenda that he ran on in 2016, that the whole party ran on, putting America first. I think the base will be very happy with what they've put through Congress, and this is a gift to the core supporters who voted for them.
Definitely is aimed more towards the base, reinstating the Keystone Pipeline, moving against sanctuary cities that refuse to uphold the national or federal immigration laws, defunding Planned Parenthood, and then kind of the only one that's kind of bipartisan is the Noxalone one for fighting the opioid crisis.
Yep, exactly. I know. So the thing is, we have Planned Parenthood legislation, Keystone Pipeline legislation, and then the other legislation you have regarding, what is the third legislation?
Sanctuary cities.
Sanctuary cities. All three of those, very, very partisan. Gift to the base, like I said, but I'd imagine all of them will see time in the court system. There's no way liberals will take any of those lying down as they flew through the legislature. So I would imagine that it'll be a while before you see any of those three actually implemented as they make their way through
I'm
the
sure.
judicial system.
Just look for them in the Ninth Circuit. That's probably where they're going to end up, because that's the preferred circuit court of the left.
Well, at this point, I would imagine so. It's the Ninth Circuit, but it's a circuit court, and they are a court that enforces the law, not just their opinion. So if they deem it unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. We'll see. It'll probably see many different circuits rather than the Ninth, but we'll see what makes its way to the Supreme Court. But I wouldn't imagine the battle over sanctuary cities or Planned Parenthood, those are not won, not just yet.
Probably correct. Speaking of sanctuary cities, that leads us to another bill. It's still in the House, but it's being very, very strongly and passionately debated. Is the let's see, where is it? The border. No, not the border infrastructure bill.
The visa overstays.
Oh, yes, the visa overstay. That's right. It's
yes.
Becoming quite volatile in the House as it's being debated.
Yes, it is. It's one that was always going to be quite controversial. In general, immigration for legal, if you're in this country overstaying your visa or you come illegally or something like that, you simply get deported. But now they're offering criminal criminal sanctions. And they're saying that proponents of legislation are saying that those who overstay their visas with some qualifiers, of course, right, should go to jail. And that is going to be something that is very controversial. It would increase prison population. So we'll see. There's an amendment on the floor, I believe, to limit the punishment to non-felony status, or just under a year of jail. So we'll see how that one plays out.
Yeah, here we go. No more than 11 months and 29 days.
Mm-hmm. So just under 1 year that would make it a felony. So we see how that one plays out, but I'm sure you're going to have very, very, very angry Democrats. Republicans have majorities, but they are not exactly looking they haven't exactly looked, at least so far, to appeal to the other side at all.
Not much. Only a few sort of piecemeal pieces of legislation, opioid crisis, making certain drugs for overdoses more available to police and firefighters, but nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the kind of bill. It's always a good bill. Always a good bill to pass. Always something to get support. But the majority should fear that that might get overshadowed by the trio of bills that are going to enrage the left.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. In other news, one of the other big issues besides immigration, and we just heard a lot of things in the press about immigration, about enforcing sanctuary cities, which, as you said, will play out in the courts because many cities and states in which their sanctuary cities will resist. But the other big part of news in the press this week featured a little bit about Cuba. There was some talk by a couple different members of Congress, members of the House, about lifting sanctions or even starting some process of negotiations or talks.
Yes. It's always been, Cuba has always been an interesting issue, states, and more recently, people have started to having less of a confrontational relationship with Cuba. We probably have the worst relationship with Cuba than any other nation in the Americas. So it's not surprising per se, especially with the recent Cuban thaw, as negotiated by President Obama and former President Obama and current President Raul Castro. We'll see how when news filters out about Vice President Diaz-Canel, if you saw, recently died, but there's no news, at least so far, on cause of death or anything, and he wasn't exactly an old man. So we'll see how that news, in terms of Cuba's succession, plays out in terms of how Congress acts towards Cuba.
Right, and how the new government starts to kind of react towards the United States.
Exactly.
Another big piece of news has to do with France and Turkey. Sort of in this wave, we've seen the kind of wave of nationalism and America first here in this country, and then a little bit in Britain with Brexit. Now we're starting to see in upcoming elections in France and Turkey sort of same nationalistic tendencies. Marine Le Pen in France, and more Turkey first candidates in Turkey. Could this be a turning point for the EU and for Europe?
I believe it puts Europe at a very interesting crossroads. You have Brexit, which shocked the world in that passing. You have the election of an America First president. You have the campaigns of Marine Le Pen, whose party has always been pushed to the side in France, is going to at least win the first round. And she's going to get to the second round, only the second time ever a candidate from the far right will get to the second round in France. So with that happening, with the tide in the UK, the EU will certainly have to get its act together. They will have to show the people in the EU why people benefit from being in the EU. They've gotten complacent. They haven't explained their benefits. There's a lot of centralization in Brussels that have made people angry. And in harder economic times, if they don't shape up, if they don't make their case, the case that the average voter can understand, it will continue to be dark days for the European Union.
And you can kind of see a lot of similarities. You were talking about Le Pen being brushed aside along with their party. I mean, almost see a lot of similarities in the U.S. A lot of voters felt brushed aside in the previous elections, and like they didn't have a voice anymore, and they were being pretty much shoved off to the side and told to shut up and sit down. That are now kind of coming forward and won't shut up and sit down.
Exactly. The same demographic that President Fitzgerald rode to victory. The very demographic that said we're sick of being ignored. We are sick of not having our concerns addressed, pandering, and then getting to Washington and not acting. That has not only played out in America, that has played out across the West. Played out in Britain with Brexit. It's playing out in France right now. It's played out in Turkey. Interestingly, looking at the history of Erdogan, it has played out in Turkey for the last 10 to 15 years. The people who have consistently been ignored for decades and decades by establishment are rising up. But even with that, you have to consider, this first wave, there is an opportunity for people to respond. And we'll see if that can happen. We'll see if in France, it'll be interesting to watch. There are three candidates, Macron, Fillon, Mélenchon, who are vying for that second spot in the runoff against Le Pen. We'll see how they do. Somebody like Macron, very, very pro-EU, very interested in making the case. So we'll see if he can make it in the second round, if he can make that case that those voters concerned can be heard in the system, which is a very good question.
That is a very good question. We'll have to wait and see. As always, thanks for being on the show. You bring great insight to the world.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Capitol Hill is a free online political simulation game. You can find it here on TedderVision.com. You can also find some other cool things. You can talk, and there are forums for other discussions. But most of all, this game, and it's fun to play. Some of you may like to listen to these broadcasts. And I'd like to encourage you to come check us out. You can find us on TedderVision.com. Thank you and good night.